Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fiction genre. For today's episode, I'm talking about the latest episode of Killjoys as well as the latest episode of Dark Matter. Starting off with Killjoys, an episode where we learn about a school called Prodigy, basically a school where all super smart westerly kids go to, and you had that the boy they chose, one of the kids was being chosen was Jake. Essentially, let's backtrack a little bit to explain it. Remind everyone it's about the team finding out that Khlyen has some kind of connection to the school because the message he sent before the Red 17 base basically got dealt with. The last message he sent out went to this school, so they're basically using this as a way of getting in. Now, something I want to talk about real quickly is that boy Jake's dad. Now, Jake's dad talked about the fact is, he wanted to hold on to Jake. He's like, there's no way my son is accepted to that. He's all I have left. Now, you can interpret it in multiple ways. The fact is, Olin was gone, hasn't been back for 3 years, and the mom died during the bombings. Now, you could argue it's like, okay, the dad's just being very protective of his son. He's like, I don't want to lose you because I love you. I don't want to take the chance you will come back. Or maybe it's 100% the fact is, I don't want to be alone. And I kind of feel like it leans more toward that. Maybe there is some love behind it, but I feel like, by the way Jacob acts, because he's like, yo, get me the hell out of here. I want to get away from here as soon as possible, because he's like, sorry, Dad. He's just like, I want to go. But it seems more so like the dad just doesn't want to be alone. It's not out of love and being a loving father. It's just, I don't want to be stuck here in this crappy place alone. And then certain things kind of come up. One line in this episode I like, it's what you constantly see in the previews. It's like, we work so well together. You lead, I shoot, and Johnny gives a shit. You constantly see that in the previews, and now we kind of see the context of it because Johnny is so willing to help Potter with her whole situation. Basically, she stays on the ship with Lucy until she kind of figures out what she wants to do, because essentially, she told Johnny about the information she found out about them putting walls around not just not just Old Town, I don't know why I said but the other major towns on Westerly as well. So basically, she wants to try and figure things out, but she doesn't want to get Johnny too caught up in it because he is a killjoy, and she doesn't want this to kind of backlash on him. Johnny's like, who cares? Yes, killjoys don't choose a side, but friends do. Friends are always there for friends, which it's obviously more than friendship. Even Davin kind of points it out later in the episode. You love her, don't you? It's like, yeah, he does. There's even a point when Johnny was looking for her. Lucy was like, yeah, this is her last signal. If she's not here, she's probably dead. He's like, okay, a yes could suffice. Me, I think, Lucy kind of made that comment out of jealousy because, she really likes Johnny. Johnny's her favorite. So, obviously, she's a little picky, probably a little meh about him picking up with other women. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it. Speaking of kind of relationships and stuff like that, we did see kind of Davin and Dutch kind of talk about the fact is of their complicated relationship. Basically talking about the fact is, okay, I get things are kind of complicated between us, and you let Alvis on the ship and stuff like that, and he's basically saying if things get things turn whatever way they do with you and him, and it's like certain things lead to a certain road, he's like, I'm gonna be okay with it. I get that we're complicated. So, and we even see him flirting a little bit with that I guess she's a waitress in Pre's bar, but basically, he was like, oh yeah, actually we're dropping this kid off to Prodigy, and she's like, oh, that's so nice of you, and just Davin's up there smiling, just like, yeah, and just Pre and Dutch are kind of smiling and rolling their eyes, oh boy. But what I really liked is once again, things doesn't always work out the way they're supposed to. They get to the school, it's empty. I love it when there's kind of that little dark mystery atmosphere to some of the places they end up going, and this being one of them. Being the fact is that it's like, oh crap, it's like, where have all these students going? And they were kind of like, oh crap, to begin with, when they, not just with the people not really finding anyone, but also when they end up finding out, it's like, oh yeah, Delcea runs this place too, which is like, they've constantly had their problems with Dulcia in the past. She's not the most trustworthy person, especially when she actually popped. I thought it was more interesting when she actually popped up this episode too. I was like, that's interesting. And yes, I'm noticing her name now. I actually said it. I'm terrible with names, but when I kind of finally hear someone's name enough, I'm like, okay, remember it. So I know it now, but I'll most likely end up forgetting it next week. That's just how I am. My memory is terrible. But basically, it's a little experiment she's running. The other 9 don't know who she is. And apparently, a side note is, they didn't have much interaction in this episode, but apparently her and Potter kind of have a past. Basically, she was kind of, the way Potter kind of paints it is kind of like, back in the day, they'll say it was kind of the mean girl. She did a lot of crappy stuff to Potter, and Potter kind of got her back. I love Johnny's comment and be like, I'm a little turned on and scared at the same time. She's like, yeah, I get that a lot. But turns out Dulcia is making some little experiment. It's kind of like a memory bank. Basically, in the case of a war or something, she's storing all these different memories and information. And that's what the kids kind of serve the purpose of. And why she's doing that, mainly it's for Khlyen, but specifically what the circumstances are, what it's necessary for, she doesn't know. She won't know until Khlyen contacts her. So maybe it's for war, or maybe it's preparations for something else entirely. We don't know. And what I like in this episode also is the fact is we see a little bit more of that Dutch and her relationship. Like, they have always been reluctant allies. I mean, more so on Dutch's part. Like, Dulcia has always been fascinated. Granted, obviously, that Dulcia knows more than she lets on. I definitely think when it comes to Dutch, she knows a lot more, too. I think that's the reason why she has such information about her. Like, remember, it didn't take her long back in season 1 to find out who Dutch was. And her, the fact that she's in contact with Khlyen means maybe her implanting herself in Dutch's life, willing to help her out and stuff like that, is because, she's connected to Khlyen. Maybe there's much more there. I don't know. I guess at the same time, Khlyen, with whatever is going on behind the scenes, Khlyen needs powerful allies. So, of course, he gets someone from one of the 9 families to help, so. But it's like, why are they working together? Like, is it kind of like he's using her, but she's also using him? I can only assume she's using him for power. Like, she's probably trying to work some stuff behind the scenes, trying to make power plays. That's what I can only assume. It is sad that at the end of it all, that when it came to the experiment, I mean, it sucks that these kids got experimented on, but to find out is like, yeah, they all got liquefied. And it all seems like, oh, this Chambers lady did it. And then you get their nice twist. It's like, oh, it's not Chambers. It's actually Jake's older brother, Olin, who everyone was thinking was dead. But actually, he's the only one that survived. In fact, he's the one that's got whatever Khlyen sent. Because whatever Khlyen sent is what started the malfunction. Because I guess he was sending so much information and basically overloaded the system. Caused a malfunction. Basically, every kid inside got liquefied except for him and Chambers. But then Olin killed Chambers because he thought she was going to try and put him back in there, and she was trying to kill him. It was kind of a misunderstanding. She was trying to save him because she didn't legitimately care about him. It was just really sad that the kid was kind of pushed through that. I mean, he was willing to basically leave everyone behind, basically pulling the air out of there so that they can like unhook Lucy so him and Jake could leave, because like there's no way we're going back to Westerly, because it's kind of reflected in the conversation that Johnny has with him, comparing his situation to his and Davin's, like having kind of a crappy father, and being like, yo, you got to look after you. Basically ended up leaving your little brother behind for these past 3 years. He didn't know necessarily where you were, what kind of condition you were in. He even thought you were dead at one point when he came here. And it's like, you left him with your crappy father, and it's like, you owe it to your brother to like stop being crazy, because he was willing to blow them all up just because, just after everything that he went through, because he's like, you're RAC agents, you're just going to take me back to Westerly so that or give me to the company and they can run experiments on me again, which that's not their intention. But he's so distrusting of anyone because he doesn't know who he can really trust. The only person he feels like he can trust is his little brother. That's the only person he really cares about right now. So I did like it that we kind of had a little bit of a conversation between Jacob and Davin. I did like the fact that it kind of got close, especially because like he was like, because even Jacob was like, not Jacob, Jake was asking, can he go with Davin? Like, because he didn't want to go back home. But basically, Davin's like, yeah, our dads are ass That's all jerks. And then Jake responded, my dad's an asshole. And it's just like, it's kind of a sweet bonding moment. But it does bring up those parallels of like their kind of upbringing versus his. I mean, being the same as theirs. That's why like Davin got super pissed early on when like guy was like, when their dad was grabbing onto Jake, and he was just like, I don't like bullies because reminded of his childhood. It seems like their dad was very abusive. Which we find out a very interesting thing at the very end of the episode. It seems like Khlyen woken up with from his being in that pod, in that stasis or whatever, fancy being the badass he is, killed those other people. So they took over the ship, and basically he's saying to go to where Johnny and Davin grew up, because basically he wants to find out why Davin is immune. So it seems like that's still a mystery to Khlyen, so he's trying to get answers for it. So maybe next episode we'll get to find out more about Papa Jacoby. It'd be very interesting to kind of see the man and see like, would they be able to repair the relationship? I don't think it's going to be something as simple as like, oh yeah, whatever situation goes down next episode, oh, we're all fine and better now. It's like, no, there's a lot of like resentment and hate between all of them. I think especially when it comes to Davin and her dad, but maybe with Johnny too, because Johnny stayed around like a lot longer than Davin did. Because Davin, obviously he was younger, but kind of like younger military, but then he eventually went off to military, so he probably wasn't home for very like many years. Not just the years he went missing, but any years he spent in the military, and all that time Johnny was probably back home with him, especially considering he stayed, obviously because he stayed behind because their mom was dying, she was sick, so he stayed behind for her sake, not their dad. So probably during all that time he still had to deal with their dad's crap, so maybe he'll be the one that ends up resenting him the most. Now, with that all said and done, I want to get back to Dutch and Dulcea. It's very interesting how that relationship is. It's very love-hate. Like I said, it seems very reluctant allies, but it does seem like in this episode they kind of get closer. I mean, obviously, like I said, like it's how Khlyen and Dulcea are most likely using each other. It seems like Dutch has kind of joined that unlikely partnership as well, in the sense of like she's working with Dulcea, not necessarily that she trusts her, because I don't trust her because she's got too many damn secrets. She's always playing someone else. She's always out for herself and no one else. So you can't really trust someone like that. But like her and Dutch have this kind of love-hate relationship, this kind of cat and mouse thing, especially throughout the episode. I did kind of like the fact is that Dutch shot her in the leg. Like Johnny was like, yo, what are you doing? But you can see Potter behind him kind of like having a smile on her face, like, yeah, give it to her. Just because, like I said, the way Potters are talking about it is kind of like, yeah, Dulcea is a bitch. She kind of is a bitch. Past actions have proved that. But, like just the smiles and everything, and I did like first Dulcea was playing a little game with her, saying 2 truths and a lie, and basically Dutch played it back with him, and one of hers was like, the kiss we had wasn't too bad, and then she was like, it's not called 3 truths, Killjoy. So a little flirtatious there too. I don't know. I mean, will it turn anything romantic? I don't know. I think that was just them being playful. I mean, hey, you never know. It could go that route. It'd be kind of interesting if it did go that route. It'd be weird because they'd be the most mixed match pair, but opposites attract, right? Like it'd be like a relationship out of like distrust and I don't know, deceit, But we got little bits of it, but it seems like whatever's in Olin's head is what Davin originally saw, that original memory. It seemed like he saw pieces of it because we saw what looked like it could have been Dutch. I mean, we didn't see her face or like any body features, but with what she was wearing, it looked like it might be. We saw Olin seeing like Dutch from behind. So basically, he's with Alvis. Alvis trying to decipher the message he got last episode, as well as going to help him recover some of his memories. So be very interesting to see where everything goes in those regards. And so I know, since we found Potter in her situation she was in earlier, basically that lady was like, okay, I'll be your, basically she's kind of the mom of the group, and well, not all those people, at least I don't know where Potter's was. I think she was kind of the head honcho, and the lady was like, okay, you're going to basically marry my sons. Basically you win your freedom by arm wrestling her, and Potter's won. and they got out of there, but I feel like that's not the last we're going to see of them. I think they're going to come after Potters again. Maybe not. Maybe that is the last we'll see of them. I don't know. I feel like Potters isn't completely gotten away from that situation because of her and Johnny, we did get a situation, because I brought it up earlier, the line from the previews always here. It's because Dutch kind of thinks Potter might be a distraction for Johnny. She's like, I need Johnny's full attention. And Johnny brought her up. I didn't say anything when you brought Alvis up on the ship last episode. And she's like, fine, but don't let her distract you. So she still is currently on the ship. So it's going to be very interesting to see how things proceed from here. Wonder, will there ever be a Davin and Dutch again? Maybe, but I feel like a little more time has to come by. They have to kind of, I don't know, they've kind of gotten to a good place nonetheless. So it would be kind of interesting to see like if that will proceed any further, or is that just completely done? I feel like it's not. I think they still harbor feelings for each other, but it's just everything else has kind of gotten in the way. So, but very good episode. Can't wait to see where everything goes next week and for the rest of the season. Now moving on to Dark Matter. Very good episode. So many things went down. Let's break everything down. With the android basically wanting to get off the ship. She's following Five and the Doctor Dude around, wanting to examine humans. Basically saying like the crew isn't the best subjects to study. She's walking around this shopping center basically, examining people. And then that guy walks up thinking like she stole something. That guy Vincent comes to her rescue. Like there's no way she stole anything. She's an android. She wouldn't do anything like that. Display any human-like feature, like qualities like that. And it turns out like, oh yeah, she actually did. She stole something. It was kind of interesting. I was like, wow, you really actually stole something. That's interesting. She wanted to give a gift to the crew, basically, just because it's like, oh, they're always so nice to me. It's my way of repaying them back. Really nice discovery is finding out Vincent's actually an android. Him and his friends are androids. They're actually kind of laying low. Essentially, they're kind of quote unquote malfunctioning androids because they've acquired human personalities. They've blended in with human society. Obviously, they hide their marks as androids, and they use these special devices that kind of make them sound less androids and more human, like in the way that they act and as well as the way they speak. And basically, Vincent ended up running a diagnostic on the android. It's not a malfunction that makes her act the way she does now. It seems whoever made her like this. So prior to her losing her memories in season 1, maybe the android was already like this. Maybe this is because she's kind of under the impression that she became like this because something wrong with her systems. But maybe she was always like this even before she lost her memories. In the first episode when they kind of had to shut her down when she was kind of kicking her asses. But she even kissed Vincent and everything. He bought her clothes, which the former is what she was the most excited about. I did like that. It was just kind of like her kind of walking forward and smiling a little bit. Because I'm very interested to see what kind of personality the android would have. Because she has a device, because we see her looking at it at the end of the episode. Because I saw some of the previews with her in it. I mean, she didn't really say much, but the way she was acting, like I think it was like a single shot of her like fighting someone maybe, and she was dressed differently and acting a little different. So I was like, so it makes me think she will decide to use this device, because it does seem like she wants to be a little more human, because she's kind of in between right now. Yes, she's an android, but she's displaying very human emotions and behavior. So especially because that I think that's one reason why she wants to study people, so she can become more like them and not be so different. I think she kind of wants to blend more better with the crew. It'd be kind of interesting to see see what personality she gets. Like in the back of my mind, I keep thinking it's like, am I going to see her like Zoe Palmer kind of acting more like she was as one? Like, what is this character going to be like? Because we've kind of known the more stoic android, though she kind of like has mannerisms like, okay, just kind of goes with the flow type of personality. Obviously, maybe that's just her being an android, but that's still part of her personality. So I'm curious to see what Zoe Palmer is going to do with her. I mean, maybe it's not going to be 100% her decision. Maybe the creators of Dark Matter are like, oh, we want the character to be this way. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably going to be depending on like what she kind of decides. Like, oh yeah, I kind of feel like the android would be more like this, kind of very, she might be one way being like, oh, this is the way, she starts off at first, but then she kind of warms up to having a personality. Maybe at first it's too much for her. Maybe everything's a little overwhelming. It'd be interesting to kind of see interactions between her and the crew, like with this new personality. And then there's the whole thing with Dr. Dude and Five. you can totally tell Five has a crush on him because she's willing to go everywhere with him. The android's asking, she's like, no, you don't have to come along. Not like she was saying like, oh, don't come along, please don't. It's like, I mean, she's like, okay, if you want to come along, sure, but it's just like, it could be just me and him. And it's just like, can I get you anything? When he's got all the supplies ready to do his surgery on 6, but he's like, oh, you cough, and she's like, sure. So it seems like she's got a thing for him. Once again, could be me misreading the situation. But it also seems like he's a drug user because basically he shot up. Never would have saw that coming because he always seems so on top of things. But, kind of comparing it with Killjoys, the same thing could be said about Potter's. Like, you wouldn't have known that she used drugs on occasion because it's like I guess because he's never gone through withdrawal throughout this entire point. Maybe that's why he stayed working in the medical aspect of the prison because he was like, yo, this free way to steal drugs. So, I don't know. Like, I guess that's something he's kept under wraps. I mean, the fact is that they're presenting that to you means that's obviously going to turn to a story thing. That's going to screw the crew over in some shape or form because they're going to need him at a crucial point and he's just going to be, going a little crazy. It's going to probably be a little bit disheartening for Five because she likes him. Once again, my intuition, so I could be 100% wrong about that. Because we saw it a little bit when he was doing Five's surgery and his handshake. Almost, I won't lie to you, I almost completely forgot. I was like, oh, getting medical supplies and like surgery. I was like, oh, and then they start talking about Five. I was like, right. You put him in that stasis so you could get some supply long enough so you can get some supplies and perform surgery on him. I like completely forgot. I knew he was in stasis, but I forgot that's what the whole point was. I totally forgot. Because it was kind of referenced twice in this episode, both to 5 and to 3. Eric's kind of bringing up the points. Like, basically, all three of them trying to decide whether they're going to stay on the ship or not. The 3 newbies. Eric's obviously pushing for like, oh, keep me on the ship. I mean, but you have a cop on your ship, so you should be dealing with that more carefully. Like, that's going to lead to problems later on. I mean, 3 kind of explains how things are, basically saying it's complicated. It's a very complicated situation. It's not as simple as just getting rid of them. It's like, there's many levels to it. And then the newbie lady, she's kind of like training with 4, and she's showing that she's pretty good with weapons. She picks things up pretty quickly. She even talks about the fact is that she kind of adapts to things really quickly. Like, I mean, she's able to anticipate someone's move ahead of time before they make it, and most times she's right. So don't think she's going to be anybody normal. It'd be very interesting if we ended up finding out she has some kind of connection to 4, like the reason why she can fight so well. Maybe she's someone that was sent to kind of apprehend 4. I don't know. Like, because we still don't know their backgrounds. We know why Eric's in this situation is because he works for that lady who's after 5, particularly what 5 has. I'll get to her in a moment, but it's like, what's her deal? I don't know. She's like, maybe you have to keep me around to kind of figure it out. So, I don't know. But speaking of Erickson kind of connected to that lady situation, it's like, all right, rather than worry about getting 5, I'm just going to steal the thing from her, breaks into her room and everything. And he has a whole conversation with 5. Now, I knew that was going to go one of 2 ways. It was either going to be like, okay, either she took that off of him or, she had some suspicions and she just took it off of him, like, because she knew. Or he's going to grow a conscience and tell her the truth. And I was like, maybe it's probably going to lean towards the latter because I don't think 5 knows to be suspicious of him. And it turns out, oh, she does because 2 told her to keep an eye on her, on him, had surveillance cameras, saw what he did, bumped into. Because I was wondering, because it was too suspicious for 5 to hug him like that, no matter what the conversation, to hug him like that. Someone she doesn't really know. She'd do that to the crew, but not to him. Specifically on the person she would hug is most likely, 6 or 2. 3 getting to that point, I don't know. 4 doesn't seem like a hugger type. So, they're the only ones she would hug. So I don't, to some person she doesn't really know, it's like, that's a little suspicious. Turns out she pickpocketed him. So that was pretty cool. But now they know there's somebody after them. Specifically, someone's after that key. It turns out that the key has some significance to a war that's coming. It's the key to victory, actually. So that's why someone wants it so bad. That guy that she was responding to is with the GA, isn't he? I think so. I don't know. Like, he seems like a higher up in some position. Like, we have seen him before, but I don't remember exactly who he is. But I think he has to have some kind of connection to the Galactic Authority or whatever. So that was kind of interesting. I just really like the fact that she pickpocketed him. That was so cool. And then we also have, this episode was very heavy 3 and focus, basically focusing on his past, because there's this whole thing in the beginning. Now, I didn't know how to interpret it. I was like, okay, he has the spaceship, so it could be 3. I was like, or it could be the fact is 3 took it from the kid after he killed him, because it's like, you don't really know what kind of stuff 3 did back in his time. But basically, he meets up the guys that were like, oh, we found Marcus's transponder, like at the end of the episode, like, oh, his transponder just went off. This guy's name is Tanner. Basically, he's making all this, saying like, oh, we used to be a crew together. We worked together for a long time. I raised you like a son. I was there for you after your parents were killed, and I killed the 2 guys that did it. The moment he starts saying that, I was like, you're so full of crap. You're the one that killed his parents, aren't you? You're so full of crap. And he's just like, I took you under my wing and everything. 3, believes him. He checked him out and stuff like that, but he was willing to believe him. I wish he didn't. But he ends up taking the job, because he ended up, well, for one, it was just to work with his old crew. 2 is also to get money to pay back 5, because there's a whole exchange they had where she gave him money because she had some money stashed away before they went to jail. So, because all their other money had been confiscated. But the fact of the matter is, gave him some money. It's basically like, okay, you're gonna have to pay me back with interest. And he's just like, almost like, you're a little thief, a little crook. But then at the same time, he's like, I'm thinking it's because of my own influence that you turned out like this. And he's like, I don't know how I should feel about that, though. Should I be happy? Should I be sad? But, it was partially that, but it was mainly just because he wanted to be connected to his past. And then, he ends up taking a job, and the job basically involved them getting paid by, doing a job, but that job involved kidnapping a guy's son. And Drew's like, whoa, we kidnapped his son? Like, well, we seriously did that? They end up killing the guy. 3 feels bad about him. Like, he has a conscience now. Maybe back then he didn't, but now he definitely does. Asks questions about the scar that Tanner said he got from fighting the 2 guys who killed 3's parents. But then he ends up hearing a different story from the guy that he's walking beside, and just like, it comes clear. It's like, Tanner lied to him. Saw that coming. 3 killed them, met up with Tanner, got the truth out of him. Basically, him and his dad had an argument. Tanner, 3's dad was like, accused Tanner of stealing some money. Tanner was a little drunk, ended up killing both of them. He's like, I could have killed you back then, but, seeing you cowering in your mom's closet like that, it made me have a change of heart. He's basically saying, the entire time you were with me, you didn't have a problem with it. You never try to kill me for what I did to your parents. He's like, on some level, you might have forgave me. But then 3 was like, yeah, basically he shoots him. He's bleeding. He's basically like, yeah, I might have forgiven you then, but I don't remember. I'm thinking that could be interpreted many different ways. Maybe one, that's just because 3 was such an evil douchebag that he kind of let it slide, because it's like, yeah, you made me into the man I am, so I'm okay with the fact that you killed my parents. Or basically he was using Tanner because he was waiting for the opportune time. Maybe he was going to kill Tanner at the most opportune time and take over his operation, or he needed to do something else and then he'd kill Tanner. We saw him shoot Tanner. Tanner was still alive when they left, so I feel like I would have, if it were me, I'm just saying, in this fictional universe, I would have put an extra bullet in him to make sure he wasn't going to come back to haunt me. I feel like he easily could. I don't know. That's just me. But in that same regard, it's kind of like, we see it a little bit, in when his little conversation with 3, with 5, saying like, I wish that I could remember those good memories, because like she saw into his memories like, oh, that farm I remembered from last season that we saw a clip of it at the beginning of the episode, being like, oh, that was your memories, your parents really loved you, you were happy, I wish you could have stayed like that. He's like, I wish I could remember that too. But because I brought it up last episode that eventually maybe 3, there are going to be circumstances where they're going to want their old memories back, but it's like, at this point, it's like, will 3 want his memories back? Will it be too painful? Because it's also, you have to consider too, is like, he sees the fact is like, old me was willing to work with the guy that killed my parents. Do I really want to be that guy again? So that gives him some reservation about wanting to get his memories back. Like I said, there was the whole like, oh, you can keep these newer memories and get your old ones back, but obviously your old personalities would take over. So maybe he'd be super reluctant to turn back into who he was before. And we never really got this, like, found out how he got shot when he was on Sarah's planet or whatever. It could have easily been them, but he doesn't remember. So that could be extra reason to kill him, because they probably shot you and left you for dead. And they were like, oh, he doesn't remember, so let's use this opportunity to, you know, it never got brought up, but that could have been it. But maybe there were different circumstances as to why he got shot. Maybe it's stuff connected to one or Derek, which I'll get to in a second. Like, you know, whatever it is connected to his wife, you know, tracking down 3 and trying to kill him is like, oh, I killed the guy that killed, you know, Derek's wife, which he got brought up this episode, being like, basically the authorities have a suspect in mind, but they're not letting any details slip. So it seems like that story, that whole one situation is going to be kind of a periodic thing. Like, you're not going to get a lot of information about it. You're just going to get a little bit here and there, and then finally get the bigger picture, because there is a much bigger picture. You can tell that's a heavy plot point. Not necessarily that he's dead, but everything that's behind it, like basically covering up his wife's death as well as him dying. Totally had to be a paid hit. I've said it before, and I'm going to continue to say, Jace had to totally be hired to kill him. I'm sure he was willing to do it himself, but I feel like it was just there for him to be able to track Jace down like that into his room. It had to be like someone had to have told him, especially after it was the same day he was looking into his wife's murder and asking all these questions about her. So, especially because he had met the guy that's running his father's company previously, and plus that lady brought up the fact of buying that same company. She's brought that up like last episode, was it? So very interesting. Other things that went down in this episode, we had 6 waking up. And basically, he's kind of having reservations. You know, he's like, why did you save me? Two's like, you saved us. You helped us get out. It's like, it's not your fault. You got fooled. Because he's asking, what has everyone forgiven him? 3 and 4 weren't against saving you. They weren't all for it. They weren't all jumping for joy to save you. But it's like, at the same time, they weren't against it. And he's like, 5. It's like, 5's forgiving you. I mean, it's going to take a little while. She's going to be a little distrustworthy of you, but she does care about you. And it's like, but the main person that he just can't forgive is himself, because he legitimately thought he was doing the right thing. And, you know, does that make it right that he thought he was doing the right thing? Does that make that betrayal sting any less? So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes from here, and like his interaction with the crew, whether they'll be accepted him back with open arms, will there be reservations, will things kind of be a little bleh between them. And also, side note is, he's probably going to find out. The fact is, he doesn't know that 1 is dead. He doesn't know that, so, especially because he was like, I think he was the last person to see 1 alive too, so probably that's going to be some pertinent information that 2 is going to want to hear, because she actually cares about him. I thought, for a second, I thought it was going to be a little bit of a thing between 2 and the doctor dude, but it's like, no, it's definitely between him and 5. But what was the other thing I was going to talk about? Right, 2, basically, last episode, there was that place in 2's memories that 5 used against her. Basically, it's the place something bad happened to her. She was basically at her vulnerable, like at her weakest, and the most she was ever scared, and basically found out, you know, about what it is. It's basically the same facility she was made at, but at a different location. This one is on Terra Prime, aka Earth. So that's kind of interesting to know that Earth exists in this. In a dark matter universe. And I do like the fact that it's not called Terra Prime, so it does make you think, okay, so there's other Earths too. I mean, may not be called Earth, but it's called Terra Prime, so obviously there's other planets similar to it that might be named something else. Could be like, oh, this is Terra Beta, Terra Delta, yada yada yada. Because 5 was like, why do you want to go back there? You know something bad happened to you there. She's like, yeah, but basically I don't have a choice. Whether I want to or not, this might come back to haunt me, essentially. So it's just like, I might as well know where it is and be prepared for it. So it'd be kind of interesting to find out, like, where things go in that department, too. Like, will she have to confront her past or not? You know, being what she is, like, basically being a weapon. So it's going to be interesting to see where that story takes us. Overall, a very good episode. But that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.